a situation where everything you could see told you that you were losing? The bank account said, not enough. The doctor's report said, it's serious. The family situation said, this is broken beyond repair. You weren't imagining the pressure, it was real. But what if the real problem wasn't what you were seeing? What if the real problem was everything you couldn't see? That's the tension at the heart of today's Harvest Focus episode, Seeing the Unseen. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you being a part of the program. We're looking forward to a great weekend at Harvest Church. Sunday morning, January the 11th, we return for worship at 10 a.m. We have family prayer at 4 o'clock, Sunday school and Bible study at 5 p.m. this Sunday, the 11th. And then on Monday night, the 12th, Celebrate Recovery down at the Helping Hand, led by Brother Michael Green at 7 o'clock p.m. Tuesday night, family prayer is at 7 o'clock. Midweek Refresh is at 7 o'clock. Wednesday night, I plan to teach a lesson entitled To Be Spiritually Minded. And then Thursday morning, the 15th, is Ladies' Prayer. You do not want to miss that. And we're looking forward to a week from Sunday, Brother Dusty Frierson preaching in our Sunday morning worship experience. You do not want to miss that as well, January the 18th. And that will be at 10 a.m. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today, Seeing the Unseen. As I said earlier, there are seasons in life when what you can see feels overwhelming. You're not guessing, you're not imagining it. The pressure's real. The opposition is visible. The facts are stacked neatly against you, And when all you have to work with is what your eyes can take in, fear starts to sound like logic. You don't have to be dramatic to feel defeated. Sometimes all it takes is clarity. You see the numbers. You see the report. You see the pattern. It's repeating itself, and your mind does the math before your faith ever gets a chance to speak. And that's where Elisha's servant was in the story. He was not exaggerating in this Bible story that we're going to talk about today. When he stepped outside that city that morning, the situation was exactly as bad as it looked. Soldiers were surrounding them. Horses and chariots filled the valley. There were no escape routes, no reinforcements coming to help them, and no negotiating position with the enemy. From every angle, it looked like this is it. This is the end. So he did what any of us would do. He ran to Elisha and he said, what are we going to do? This was not a question looking for strategy. It was a statement of despair. What's striking is that Elisha does not rush outside to confirm the threat. He doesn't even acknowledge the enemy. He goes straight to prayer, but it's not the kind of prayer the servant expected. He didn't say, oh, Lord, remove the enemy. God, rescue us. He didn't ask God to intervene visibly. Here's what he said. Lord, open his eyes that he may see. That tells us something important. The servant's problem wasn't danger. It was his vision. He couldn't see very well. In fact, his eyesight was sharp enough to terrify him. The issue was not really blindness, it was limitation. He could see the visible clearly, but he had no awareness of the invisible. And when you only see what's visible, fear will always feel justified. And folks, that hasn't changed. We live in a world that trains us to trust only what we can measure, calculate, and verify. We are conditioned to believe that if we can't see it, it doesn't count. But Scripture keeps reminding us that the most powerful realities in existence are invisible. When God opened the servant's eyes, the unseen did not appear suddenly. It was revealed. God's army had been there the whole time, okay? The protection was always in place. The victory had already been decided, so they didn't just suddenly appear. He just had to it was suddenly revealed to him. The servant just didn't see it until that moment, and that's a critical distinction for us. Faith many times does not manufacture God's presence. Faith awakens us to what's already true. Think about the world we live in right now. Right now, where you're sitting, there are unseen signals that are passing through the room. I'm talking radio waves, Wi-Fi signals, cellular data. You can't see them, but your life kind of depends on them, don't they? When your phone loses signal, the signal didn't vanish. You just lost access to it. Many believers are not living without God's presence. They're living without an awareness of his presence. So how do our eyes open? Well, first, prayer changes what we notice. Prayer doesn't just ask God for things. It trains our attention. It slows us down long enough to recognize that we are not alone. One of the greatest miracles of prayer isn't the answer, it's the nearness that it produces. People who pray begin to sense God in ordinary moments. They recognize his hand in the quiet places. Prayer tunes the soul to the unseen. Secondly, obedience sharpens our spiritual clarity. You don't discover God by debating him. You discover him by following him. Jesus said that the one who does the will of God will know the truth. Obedience is not blind. It's actually illuminating. When we align our actions with God's will, our vision will adjust accordingly. And then thirdly, purity clears the lens. Jesus said that the pure in heart would see God. Sin doesn't just damage behavior, it distorts perception. Obedience doesn't make us perfect, but it does make us receptive. The cleaner the heart, the clearer the awareness of God's presence. When the servant finally saw the unseen, fear lost its authority immediately. The Syrian army didn't look smaller because they changed, but because God suddenly looked bigger. That's what happens when spiritual vision comes into focus. Faith does not deny reality, it just reorders it. When God becomes the clearest thing in your field of vision, everything else shifts. The storm doesn't disappear, but it stops defining the outcome. The problem doesn't usually vanish, but it loses its voice. Fear doesn't evaporate instantly, but it no longer controls your decisions. And here's something that we often forget. What we see shapes who we become. You fixate on threats long enough and anxiety is going to take root. Fixate on God long enough and courage grows. The servant didn't just feel better when his eyes were opened. He became braver, steadier, and stronger. So vision produces courage. And that's why Scripture says Moses endured because he saw him who is invisible. That's why Peter walked on water until he shifted his focus. That's why Paul could survive shipwrecks. His awareness of God outweighed his awareness of danger. And that's why our greatest need today is not more information. Our greatest need in 2026 is not more strategies or even fewer problems. Our greatest need is clearer sight. The prayer we need isn't, Lord, change everything around me. It's, Lord, open my eyes and help me see what you've already provided and what you're doing. Because when we see him, fear quiets, hope steadies, and courage rises. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the podcast. If you want to know more about our church, go to the website, harvesthumboldt.com. You can write us at harvesthumboldt@gmail.com, or you can write an old-fashioned letter to 3401 Bledsoe Road, Humboldt, Tennessee, 38343. This has been the Harvest Focus, where we don't just talk about faith, we live it, we walk it, and we carry it into the harvest fields of everyday life. Until next time, keep your eyes on the harvest.